Shalom, family. I know I didn't give very much notice on this, and I do apologize for that. But this is something I wanted to talk to you guys about. There is some crazy mess going on in the country, and I think we need to talk about this, not to mention the fact I want to know if anybody among our people are experiencing this. They're actually having hearings on what's going on, these employers trapping employees. And it seems to be getting out of hand across the country. So this is going to really shock some of you, and it just goes to show you, many times we have said slavery is still going on in America, but they just keep giving it a different name. And that is something that we know. We know, what sharecropping afterwards, and they've always come up with different things to make sure there is some type of servitude going on in the country. And it's all too familiar to many of us. And it's even worse now. And I just can't believe this. How you doing, LVZ? Shalom. Shalom to everybody in the chat. It's good to see you all. Hopefully this won't be too long. I sure hope not. It's not my intention for this to be a long one. All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to get into this one. It's like I said, you definitely got to hear this, and hopefully nobody gets caught up in what's going on out here. For real. I hope not. I've heard of them doing little sneaky things like this to our people, but I never knew how bad. And they're doing this, ladies and gentlemen, even to their own people. This is happening too. Okay. Now, we have heard about the worker shortage that's going on. And that's been ongoing in America for quite some time. Well, this thing is actually getting worse. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. If you can see the screen right now, please give me a 1. Thank you, Jamal Bey. All right, y'all. Thank you. All right, let's get into this. Let's get into this. Ladies and gentlemen, more U.S. employers, let me start all over. More U.S. employers are trapping workers in a new form of indentured servitude. Now, you got to listen to how they're doing this, okay? And you'll understand why they are comparing it to indentured servitude. Bosses in industries such as retail, healthcare, and logistics are reverting back to an old tactic and trapping people in miserable jobs by threatening to saddle them with debt if they quit. Workers across the U.S. in fields ranging from nursing to trucking have been discouraged from leaving jobs they hate or can't afford to keep because employers are vowing to charge them for training if they quit their job before an arbitrary deadline. So, listen to what is happening to some of these people. But before I get to that, traps come from training repayment agreement provisions, traps. And now, when you take on a new job, they're including this in contracts. The practice have been likened to critics to servitude, indentured servitude, formerly known as debt bondage, okay, to a creditor. Traps have been recently under fire from policymakers because of a class action litigation against a pet store, PetSmart, and reporting on restrictive covenants from a watchdog group called Student Borrower Protection Center. Earlier this month, the Senate Banking Committee hearings examined agreements and other form of employer driven debt. So in June, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau also launched an investigation of employment arrangements that led to workers owing money to their bosses. And these retailers are retailers you have heard of. Two workers are being threatened with thousands of dollars in bills through the enforcement of traps that appear before the banking committee on September 7th. Brianna Scully, lead plaintiff in a class action against PetSmart, told lawmakers how she was left owing $5,500 to a company for a dog grooming academy that was initially advertised as free. Also, a registered nurse by the name of Cassie Pennings testified about being stuck with $7,500, more than 6 months' rent, after leaving a hospital job because she was appalled by the staffing ratio during the pandemic and didn't want to be complicit in neglecting patients. So, because these two people quit their jobs, their bosses threw debt on them for quitting. And this is happening because it's so many shortages in different industries around the country. Now, you would think this would be illegal. It's not illegal, y'all. Your employers can literally put debt on you because you quit. And I didn't know this was so widespread in the United States, but it is. All right, so let me go on. Although the pair came from two different industries, they both detail callous indifference from their ex managers in response to their grievances. Despite being one of the most profitable healthcare systems in the nation, my former employer responded to cries for help from the front line with breakfast burritos and free water bottles, Penning said. Scully recalled one manager told her she could work her way out of debt by upselling or convincing customers to buy pet grooming products and services. So she said she had sold $6,000 worth of products and still got charged the full $6,000 a month after she left her job. So when you take on a new job, y'all better read them contracts very carefully. That's how they're getting people. When you sign on to the company, they are slipping this in the contract. And many people may not even know when they're signing. You just want a job, you just want to work. The job is better paying, one reason or another, but they are sticking this in the contract. So I thought I was getting important and valuable training, but it wasn't anything like that, Scully said. I didn't get any kind of license or accreditation or anything. And my actual training was only a few weeks. Penning also told lawmakers that She got stuck with $7,500 for her training at a hospital. A second hearing occurred on September 13th. So they're in front of lawmakers telling these stories. So Scully's attorney told the Senate Banking Committee that traps are being used by managers to leave employees with low pay, dangerous conditions, abusive treatment, and work conditions that don't allow them to advance. So, the chair of the committee, Ohio Democrat Sherrod Brown, was unimpressed with the managerial tactic. Last I checked, this is what the senator said. Last I checked, indentured servitude was illegal in the United States, but it looks like some enterprising companies are rebranding it with these new employment contracts. Absolutely. So, y'all, I'm going to say this again. Before you take on any job, make sure you read the contract, because this is happening to millions of people in America right now that are taking new jobs. So if you don't like the job or you want to leave because the pay is not adequate, they're now sticking you with debt. To me, a company, if they train you, they should be footing the bill for that training. Now, if I personally asked for the training or I wanted to learn a specific thing and you gave me the option to pay or not pay, that's one thing. But you are training these people and then after the fact telling them they got to pay for their own training on a job. Then why are you offering a job if you're not going to train these people for free? Okay, you got them there, but wow, I there is some dirty mess going on in this country for real. Okay, so Senator Brown said his office told Truth Out that the lawmaker is currently considering legislation that would rein in the use of traps by employers, and said he will work with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to ensure that consumers are protected from predatory consumer products like traps. Indentured servitude was pioneered by the British colonial period. Isn't that ironic that this is coming up after the Queen's death? So, indentured servitude, y'all, was the creation of the British. Are we shocked? Hell no. To finance the travel of European migrant laborers to North America. Wealthy individuals who paid the travel were allowed for years to closely control and abuse those who made the voyage. Although the United States technically banned indentured servitude with the abolition of chattel slavery and the ratification of the 13th Amendment, U.S. railroad companies effectively brought Chinese workers over as indentured servants. This was in the early 19th century, and these Chinese workers were indentured servants for 5 years under a contract with the railroad companies. They were stuck with low wages and substandard living conditions. Well, that's America for you. That's the history of America. The law does not permit employers or others to provide a work opportunity in exchange for a worker's promise to indenture themselves to their employers through debt. That's true, but they are still doing it out here anyway. These sort of arrangements harken back to the 19th century, used to subjugate former slaves as they are precisely the kind of exploitation that our anti trafficking laws were designed to prohibit. But we know they are doing this anyway. They imposed this on former slaves in the South of the United States during Reconstruction and the Jim Crow era through sharecropping arrangements and fines levied against racist law enforcement. Although critics question the legality of traps, a legal analysis published last year found that courts generally uphold agreements and challenge. So the courts are saying these contracts can literally be upheld. They're saying that, technically, if you sign the dotted line on these contracts that employers are putting in your face and you get caught up in this situation and get stuck with debt, the contract can be upheld. So why don't you just say you just brought back slavery? Oh my good, this is crazy. However, an author, law professor Jonathan F. Harris said another type of legal challenge might prove more successful. Courts could refuse to enforce trap contract language under the so called unconscionability doctrine, a legal principle that allows judges to void agreements containing unreasonable terms dictated by the party with superior bargaining power. Oh my God, they are saying these contracts right now are allowed in this country. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. Traps have been used commonly by employers since the 1990s, but they were almost exclusively reserved then for highly specialized workers such as engineers or airline pilots. As markets became increasingly concentrated and union power was diminished by policymakers in the 21st centuries, bosses use their growing dominance to impose traps on rank and file workers such as truckers, nurses, mechanics, electricians, salespeople, paramedics, flight attendants, bank workers, repairmen, and social workers. Harris studies detailed. Such jobs, used as middle class and highly unionized, many workers in these sectors now struggle financially, and unionization levels have dropped, according to Harris. Oh, this is just some crazy mess. For every trap that is the subject of court opinion, tens of thousands remain unchallenged. So there are a lot of people with these contracts that they signed when they started a new job and got stuck with debt after they left. They're not even challenging it legally. I know I would. Oh man. So y'all be careful when you go out here looking for new work because you don't know what you're going to get stuck with. Be very careful. Whenever they offer you a contract, try to take that contract and read it over before you sign it. Even if they say you can't take the contract, ask to be placed in a separate room so that you can read over the contract yourself. So if they put this in a contract, if they train you in the event that you leave that job, You owe the company for the training? Ooh, these people done lost their minds. But this is what's going on out here now that these businesses are desperate for workers. Wow. I mean, I could not believe what I was looking at when I came across this article. And I said to myself, there's probably millions of people out here that don't even know about what's in a contract that you're signing when you start a new job. So, y'all be careful out here. I really, truly mean it. This is not the time you want any kind of debt. You don't want debt thrown on you when you have money, So you really don't want debt thrown on you now that times are hard in this country. Economically, America is not doing so great. But to treat people like this in these last days, this is crazy. Y'all, you're just going to have to tell me what you think about this one in my comment section. And please pass this along to your family and friends that are about to start new jobs. Make sure they know what they're getting into because apparently these traps are in a lot of contracts. And I'm not talking about these little mom and pop shops. I'm talking about these big, well-known corporations are doing this to workers. Wow. All right, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and conclude this live stream. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming and thank you for being supportive of my channel. I deeply appreciate that from each and every one of you. All right, y'all. Until I come back with another good story, shalom, family.